Zevahim Daf Amud Aleph, 5 lines down, continue the halacha of bringing over the blood not by walking. Itmar, Amar Ula Bar Rabbi Yochanan, holacha shelo baregel pisla. Bringing the blood not by walking is pasuk. Gemara says, Alma lo efshar l'talkunan. Seemingly, that's the case. That if it is done, you can't fix it. Gemara says, no. Like we discussed that possibility earlier. Gemara says, no. Etive Rahman Ula nishpach min hakeli al al-isbat. Mishnah says that if the blood was received in the kli sharet, the vessel of the Bet HaMikdash, and then it spilled onto the floor, va'asafo kasher, and you gather it's kasher. Seemingly, even if it's spilled all over the place, even closer to the mizbeach, which we'll consider as not bringing it by foot, not by walking, it's still kasher. The Gemara says, "Hach ma'askin on sheitul hachutz," it spilled outward. The Gemara says, but blood doesn't splatter and only go one way; it goes all over the place, even toward the mizbeach direction. How do you explain that? The Gemara says not. Either talking about a case where it sloped away and therefore it only went down. But the answer Biguma is referring to where it spilled into a hole, so it didn't spread at all. But the third answer, Simsicha is talking about the blood that was thick and therefore it didn't splatter as much. Where it says the kapal tana lashmun and kohani. Why would the Mishnah would need to teach us such a random situation, such an unusual case? And also we see in the next parak, in the next parak, Daf Chafed, that if the animal was slaughtered and the blood went from the neck to the floor without being caught, and you gather it pasul. And if that's the case, you should have mentioned in that type of case over there. But under does that apply? When it went away from the zbeach. But when inward, it's kasher. Sorry, it's pasul. So since there's no Mishnah didn't mention that factor over there, seemingly it can't be done over here. The Gemara says, Tiyuf, that's a good question. Okay, Itmar. Brett says, Mahloket between Rabbi Shimon and Hachamim is based off of what if the blood is brought not by walking. Gemara says, no one's arguing if he walked physically towards Mizbeach, that's definitely pasul if he had the wrong intention. Keep pligi words of Mahloket, but Halacha says, if only if it was a reaching out to the Mizbeach with the blood without walking at all. If you slaughter it next to the Mizbeach. Rabbi Shimon holds, doesn't make a difference, it's already there. Not considered bringing it. Hamim hold no, even that's considered disqualification in the wrong intention, even though the blood is already there. Mar says, Mahaku ala maraba. In Eretz Yisrael, they laughed at this explanation of Rishimon. Ela hatat that's the case, because why? If you have a case of the blood of a hatat of a bird, dipsula ba machshava, where if you have the wrong intention, it makes a puzzle. The Rabbi Shimon, how would that happen according to Rabbi Shimon? Meaning, the blood of a hatat bird. I said blurred. If you don't spill it from the kli sharet, you don't spill it from the vessel. Rather, you hold the body of the bird and you swing your arm up and down so the blood goes flying in the mizbeach. So that's also a case of not bringing it to the mizbeach, but you're standing there already. So that's it. Rabbi Shimon hold that type of case, you cannot have wrong intention because there's no walking. Then how's it possible to have a case of wrong intention by bird? If the Kohen had the wrong intention before the blood came out of the neck of the bird, lo klimi, then nothing happened because it's not even considered a major holachan, not considered a major walking. So now what are you going to say? The blood already came out. The mitzvah is already done at that point, and therefore there's no psul. Mar says, okay. Marco Shah, what's the problem? What are you stuck on? Maybe the korban becomes pasul from the time the blood comes out of the bird until it hits the mizbeach, and I'll prove it to you in midair. The guy who was bringing the blood on mizbeach, and his hand got cut off until the blood did not reach the mizbeach. What's halacha? If his hand got cut off midway, the blood's airborne. His hand got cut off. Is that considered a person who has a mum bringing blood on the mizbeach, which would be pasul? Amr lib and Rabbi Zera said Pislah, it's pasul. My time why? Vehizah v'natan beinan. Yes, a sprinkle and place. Therefore, if he had a movement in between, his hand became cut off. It's as if it's wrong thought and it's pasul. So it's considered it's as if the moon put it on and therefore it's pasul. So over here, if the guy had wrong thought in midair, that's in the case of pasul. Where it says, Amre hainu huka. So now that we said that the previous reason why they laughed at him is wrong, or possibly wrong, now we're going to give a different explanation. This is why they left. There's no mahloket about walking with blood. When our Mishnah, the mahloket is literally talking about the case where they're walking. Ella, what's the mahloket? Based off of no one argues if they're reaching to the mizbeach without walking. It's definitely not puzzle. Keep looking. Where's the machloket? Balachar about with walking. Okay. Holy Chazar, what if the non-Kohen was the one who brought the blood? The Kohen brought it back to the original spot and then brought it back to the Mizbeach. Pligi better. Maybe Hiyab, maybe night, machloket, whether or not that's kasher. Hadam kasher, Hadam pasul, one says kasher, one says pasul. Why? More savar if shel takuna. First rabbi says it's kasher because the Kohen is fixing what the non-Kohen did. Well, more savar, the second rabbi is saying, no, you can't fix it. Right? So what about the opposite? Holy Chol Kohen ve'ezro. The Kohen did his job, he brought it. The Hazar v'lechol then non-Kohen took it and brought it away. And now you want a Kohen to bring it back. Amar Rav, Simi Barashi, the Debrei Machshir Pasul, the first opinion holds kasher is not Pasul. Because he holds that you go according to the second one, and so therefore we see the second guy was the non-Kohen. The first time was kasher because the Kohen fixed it. The second time the non-Kohen ruined it. Well, the pasul when it says the pasul in the first case because he goes according to the first guy, and the first guy is pasul. So over here in the second case where the second one is the Kohen machshir, he holds kasher. The man says Rambam says after the very pasul, even according to the one that says pasul in the first case, pasul in the second case as well. Why am I talking about the hadzarif? Because you still have to bring it back to the Mizbeach. So since the blood was carried away from the Mizbeach, it has to be returned. Now you have to bring it back if it's not done by a Kohen. It's pasul. Where I said the mother of Yeri under the Basher. Haki Amar, Ravim in the Difti, Asarif Hamtu Mahloket, Rabbi Lazar Banan. That concept of the fact that it had to be brought back is a mahloket. Tanam Mishan says, Rabbi Lazar says, if the blood is being brought to a place where it has to be brought, then you can have the wrong intention and can make it pasul. If it's in a place where you don't need to bring it, in the intention does not make it pasul. Amar Rabba says, everybody agrees the Kohen who got the blood far from the Mizbeach, and he brought it near the Mizbeach. It's obviously one case there that's considered bringing it where it's necessarily brought. Let's say he got it next to the Mizbeach and he decided to take a walk away from the Mizbeach. That's not a necessary walk and therefore wrong intentions will not make it pasul. Where's the machloket? In the case where they brought it to the Mizbeach and then they brought it away. More savar, one rabbi holds, Tanakh holds, since they bring it back, that intention is considered can make it pasul because it's necessary avodah. But more savar, the other holds, no, lav ki luch tzarich avodah. That's not necessary for the blood, for the avodah with the Mizbeach because it didn't have to be moved away in the first place. Meaning, the only time bringing it to the Mizbeach is considered necessary is when it needs to be brought to Mizbeach. However, if you brought it away from the Mizbeach, that part was not considered necessary for the Avodah. And therefore, from the fact that they bring it back to the Mizbeach, it's also not considered part of the Avodah. Mar said the mitzvah raises a question. The other mitzvah says, if the Kohen is bringing the blood where he has to bring it, the wrong intention can make it pasul. It can't say how. If the Kohen got it from outside and brought it near the Mizbeach, it's necessary. If you brought it next to the Mizbeach and took it away, it's not necessary. But how has everything so? Now that case to a case where he seemingly brought it back. That's considered a case of necessary to walk. Question against what we said before. That's not, that he said it won't be considered necessary. Right? He said once you bring it away, it doesn't count because you didn't need to bring it away. And therefore, if you're bringing it back, it's not necessary. Brita says opposite. And the Gemara says, Rava actually agrees to Abaye. Itanya, Brita teaching you that, then okay, I'll agree. Hadran lach kol azevachim, hadran lach kol devachim, mabruk on the first perek, new perek, kol azevachim shekibelu de manzar. Any korban that the blood was received by a non-Kohen, onen, or a Kohen that's an onen, is relative to by minan before being buried. Tibul yom, he was tameh, but he's still waiting to he washed, he dipped, and he's waiting for the nighttime to come to make him tawar. Or Musaki Purim, he dipped and waited for nighttime, but he just needs to bring a korban the next day to get kafara. Or the Kohen was not wearing the correct clothing, 8 for the godol or 4 for the regular. Shalora has if he did not wash his hands or feet. Arel if he did not drink law. Tameh he's tameh. Yosef he was sitting. Omer al or if he's standing on top of clothing or utensil, al gabe or an animal, or al gabe raglei hadro, or if he's standing on his friend's feet, pasul because he's not standing on the floor of the mikdash. Kibel b'smol, if he received the blood of his left hand, pasal, he makes it pasul. Rabbi Shimon Machshir, Rabbi Shimon says it's kasher. Okay, Zarminan, I know that a non-Kohen can make the avodah pasul, whatever he does. The time the Levi says, Taber Aaron b'nav, the more they naziru mikoche b'nei Israel. They should separate themselves from the kedusha of b'nei Israel and not to make it mundane. B'nai Israel lem'utim. I wanted to mention B'nai Israel. Ilim lem'utim onashim. You want to exclude women because he's saying this B'nai Israel, the sons of B'nai Israel. Sounds like you're excluding the women. Korban hashim b'tum'at karev. What does that mean? You're saying that the woman's korban can be brought while they're tameh? Why does they bring that? Teach me that. What are you excluding? Okay, ella lem'ute of the kavim. Maybe you're excluding the korban of a goy. Then maybe the Kohen who's Tameh can bring it. The Gemara says, Hasha sislum teraseh. Now we know the halacha, well, we don't know, I'll teach you right now. We'll learn right now. Is it the sis, the Kohen Gadol's head plate, with the golden head plate, they used to, that would allow korbanot that was done not 100% well, or if it was, if the blood or the parts of the korban would become tameh, that head plate will allow the korban to be brought and accepted. So now, if the sis does not do that, does not accept the blood of a korban of a goy, the Mamor, like Rabbi said, regarding the goyim, ben b'shoy ben mizeh, whether or not it did the tameh blood on purpose or a mistake, lo hurza, the korban is not kasher. Bitmat karev. Now you're gonna tell me that if they can bring it by a kohen who's tameh, definitely not. Elahim already telling us fast. V'nazru mikoche, they should separate themselves from the dusha. Bnei Yisrael v'lo yachadu. So that was both phrases teach you that first the kohen is who's tameh cannot bring the korban, and secondly that non-Kohanim also cannot bring a korban. Okay, Be'esh matana, active a kavachom mil'almum, we can bring a kavachomer to teach you a zaraz pasul. Ma ba'almum she'ochel, if a Kohen with a mum can eat the koche kochim, im avad hilal, but still if he does the actual avodah, he makes a pasul. So he can't eat it, but he can't work it. So zar she'en ochel, the non-Kohen who can't eat, and then shem avad hilal, so if he works, then he definitely makes it pasul. Mar says, no, ma'al ba'almum she'ken asa bo karev kimakrif. One second, you can't compare that because the guy with a mum, the guy with a blemish, is different. He has a unique factor. The Quran, the korban with a blemish is also pasul, just like the kohen is pasul. So we see that double factor of a mum. Gemara says, okay, tamei yochiach, but a kohen with tamei also will show you that there's not a factor. Meaning, the non kohen only applies to the one who's bringing the avodah, and not to the avodah itself. Right? And tum'ah would apply to both can apply to both the kohen and the non-kohen and the korban. Gemara says, okay, how can you compare that to a kohen who's tameh? He can make other people tameh. Gemara says, okay, but still, that's not a big deal because a mum kohen who cannot make other people mumin by touch, like a kohen can make a tameh person can make another person tameh. That shows it's not a characteristic that's necessary. The Gemara says, the argument goes back and forth. Lord they don't have they all bounce off each other because it was not similar. Hatashaben was the common denominator, Shevahen was rain, they are all chayav, not to do the avodah. And if they did do it, it makes it possible. If I bring the non-Kohen as well into that special chapter Shum Muzar, he has an issue not to do Avodah, Bimavar Hilan, if he did it makes the pasuk. Where it says Minan de Muzar, how do you know that he's a non-Kohen is warned not to do it? Im Bimanazeru, if you want to bring me from the pasuk, but they should separate themselves, like I said earlier. Hilal Begufek Tibe. The pasuk over there says they shall not do it. You can't tell me that that's where you learn the warning from as well, because then there's no kavachor that made it. That's the avodah pasuk because that's where the pasuk was used. Okay, fine. Rather, we learn from the pasuk of the coin, the non-coin should not approach. Gemara says, okay, fine. But look at 1 second. You can not that also. You can't compare because the kohen with a mum and a person and a kohen that's tameh, they are not even allowed to serve a korban on a bama, the personal mizbeach that we mentioned in the previous parak. However, a non-kohen can bring a korban by the mum, by the bama. Gemara says, okay, fine. Lo tema tameh yochiach. You know what? We said earlier that tameh is is the Tamek guy is it makes a difference. It's a different factor. We'll say the onen's different. The fact that the onen makes it pasul, that also shows the non-Kohen can make it pasul. The Gemara says malo onen chicken asur maaser. 1 second, it's different. Onen can't eat maaser sheni, and a regular non-Kohen can, right? Maaser sheni is a special maaser that anybody brings to the Beit HaMikdash to eat. And onen can't do that, but a regular Kohen, non-Kohen can. Gemara says ba'mum nochiach. A Kohen with a mum can eat maaser and still makes the avodah pasul. So no proof to the non-Kohen. The Gemara says, okay, but Hazatin lo All right, again, each thing has their own factors. Hatzat Sheben, what's the common denominator? Shem Uzarin, they all have the Isur not to do the Avodah. And if I'll include the non-Kohen as well, to teach you that he can't do the Avodah. And if he does, make the Basul. The Gemara says, Hachanami Lifroch, you have another question. Ma Tzat Sheben, Shekin Lohu Tubama. Common denominator, the Kohen with the mum and the arnen, they can't do an apama, but a non-Kohen can. Gemara says, "Matkif lerav sama b'rei rava uman lema landa unen asubama dilma sharevma." Who says? All right, that was an assumption you just made. Who says a non-Kohen can't do bama? Maybe he can. And therefore, we knocked that out, and therefore, he can be a good comparison. And we will stop here.